The crisis in Washington, Trump, Comey, the Russians, and the one word a Michigan Republican dared to utter. Plus an inside look at the deportation process for one mother in Detroit. We'll have a One Detroit report. Stay right there. My week starts now.
Did you know Gordon Food Service was started by a 23-year-old entrepreneur as a butter and egg delivery business more than a century ago? In 1948, school teacher Gerard Wendell Hayworth borrowed $10,000 from his parents to start a woodworking operation in his family's garage. It's now Hayworth Incorporated. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-Made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Hi, and welcome to My Week. I'm Stephen Henderson, sitting in for Christy McDonald. We have a full table tonight as we take on the biggest headlines of the week. From Washington, there's the controversy surrounding President Trump that has a Michigan congressman using the word impeachment. Plus, we'll examine the role of the press and the perspective of trust in government. Also tonight, some headlines from Michigan, including a follow-up in the case of a young Detroit woman who is days away from deportation. That's all coming up. So let's get started. Our regular contributor, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, is off tonight. Welcome back, Aaron Einhorn, who's a former politics editor for the New York Daily News and now founding editor of Chalkbeat Detroit. Also back with us is Daniel Howes, a columnist with the Detroit News. And here for the first time is Kim Trent from the Wayne State Board of Governors. She's also a policy associate with Michigan Future Incorporated. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So nothing going on. I don't know what we're going to talk about tonight. Daniel, I want to start with you. We did see Congressman Justin Amash come out this week and say, hey, all of this stuff that we're learning about Donald Trump is concerning to me. And he says if he's guilty of these things, impeachment might be the way we need to go. I think this is a test for Republican congressmen. We heard from Justin Amash. We heard from Fred Upton. Where's Mike Bishop? Where's Dave
I think
Trott?
a lot of these guys are just putting their heads down and hoping this is going to go away, hoping it doesn't. Some of this stuff doesn't check out. But clearly, this president has. I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. I have never in my adult life seen more screw-ups out of a new administration. And
at the state or the federal level.
But I have to say, I have an own personal rule. I call it House Rule 104. Thou shalt not give thine enemies a club to beat me with, which you, as writing a column, know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
and this White House and this president specifically hands out those clubs rhetorically, daily.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a test for Republicans, and I think they will pay if they. One of the things that is supposed to have been part of that party has been the ability to discern right from wrong and the ability to call balls and strikes, and they're not doing it so far.
Yeah, I mean, Kim, as someone who worked in a Democratic administration, and you've seen this before, that there are times when you have to stand up and condemn somebody, even in your own party, because they're doing things that just aren't right, and that it's always a test. It's always hard.
Well, happily, I don't think I've ever had to justify this level of.
Well, think about when Kwame Kilpatrick, for instance, when he was in deep trouble.
He was a Democrat, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, he was.
We can still admit that.
Right.
Probably still is.
Right.
That's right. But I mean, you know, I feel like if you're in a life of politics, you always come across these kinds of troubles, and you gotta sort of have that moral compass.
But I think, you know, really, if we're going to use Kwame Kilpatrick as a measuring stick for this,
not the same.
His not the same. Sure, certainly, his foibles are, you know, historians will be looking back at them for, you know, decades to come. And, you know, as a Democrat, of course, that was a difficult situation for any of us to be in. But he did not threaten the entire basis of democracy,
the whole republic,
the presidency, how we look at leadership. This is really a test of who we are as Americans. And, you know, it's a cliche to say, are you going to put country above party? But this has got to be the most pressing, you know, real life example of a time where people really have to look at the untold damage that we really could sustain as a country if we don't do the right thing about
it's certainly in
at
our
least looking
lifetime.
into these allegations.
Well, it's a test of our institutions, and I would submit to you that so far they're performing fairly well. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little worried about justice and the Justice Department and the interference there, but I think otherwise you're
well.
Right,
I think
right.
the naming of Robert Mueller as a special counsel certainly is a step in the right direction.
It's moving that back in the right place. That's right.
You know, I think that's really important.
Yeah, Aaron.
I mean, I think it's really a, you know, if you're a politician and you reach the end of your life, you know, do you want the first line of your obituary to be, you know,
didn't stand up?
No, or you know, she was loyal to her party to the end. You know, like she really paid her dues and worked her way up and like, you know, kept her mouth shut when like stuff got difficult. So that's really the question. And I don't know. I mean, you know, I sort of feel like if I were in elected office, I guess it's easier when you're a journalist and you're sitting on the sidelines, you know, passing judgment. But you want to believe that you want your leaders to be people who believe in something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, right here in Michigan, like I said, we have Amash and Upton out saying the right things. I think we have a lot of other Republican congressmen who don't seem to be able to find their way to that.
Well, we're talking about a different kind of White House here, though. I mean, there's been a political price to pay for people that speak up against this president. Now, he may begin to lose his potency a little bit. But, you know, we've got to see how this all plays out. And if you're calling for investigations, let the investigations play out and see where the evidence leads.
So the other thing that really rankles me about this is, so Donald Trump's doing all kinds of things that are just, I mean, I think just mind-blowing. They blow your hair back. And it is almost every day. You think back to 8 years ago when we had a new president, the first black president, and the way he was treated for much different things. This double standard that plays out is just, it's one of the things that's just got me sort of jumping out of my chair every night watching the television.
Even today we saw the president tweeting that no other, I guess this was yesterday, I can't even keep track of his Twitter musings, but where he made the statement that, you know, no other president has ever faced this kind of political witch
in history.
In history. Oh, in history.
In history.
I mean, and this is a man who spent a great portion of his time as a private citizen accusing the president of the United States of not being an American. I mean, what worse insult can you lay at the foot of a sitting president than that he lied about his very identity as an American?
Right, to get the job.
You know, it's just the irony, the hypocrisy. It's really stunning.
Well, really it's a selective outrage. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, at the end of the day. I mean, you know, I had some real issues with Hillary Clinton and the server, and I think the potential way she may have exposed the country to national security threats, potentially.
Yeah.
I'm just as critical of Trump in that regard as I was of her. I think we need more people in the public space that are going to call balls and strikes and not do it through a partisan prism.
Well, and I think the problem is that the problem for Republicans now is that the president's core support just doesn't seem shaken by
well,
any
you know
of this
what?
stuff.
Remember during the election, during the campaign season, when he said something like, "I can go out in the middle of the street and shoot someone, and nothing would happen."
And no one would.
Little did we know how that was not as hyperbolic as we thought it was. I mean, what can this man do for people to say, maybe this wasn't the best choice for leader of the free world?
Well, the other question is, can he get anything done in his administration?
Right.
And that's,
Bingo.
you know, he still wants to do health care, tax reform, all these other agendas, all of which have, I mean, who knows?
No one's talking about any of that stuff.
And no one will.
Yeah.
And until this investigation, which could go on for years, basically for the rest of his
Well,
term.
I did see the Koch brothers are now mobilized to try to make sure that the tax plan stays on track.
They've never been a fan of Donald Trump.
They're not, but I think that they see, you know, the one
saw
thing
the market. The market sold off 370 points on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think that's all tied to exactly what Aaron just said.
Is that people are fearful that things aren't going to get done.
That the tax reform and regulatory reform that that you got in the Trump bounce of 2,000 points after election is going to evaporate.
Right, and I think, you know, that core support eventually will shake over those things, right? That they expect certain things out of this administration. If they don't start seeing them in sort of substantive ways, maybe they move, and that gives a little more play in the joints to the leadership in the House and the Senate. But until then, you know, I think they're a little stuck. I mean, you can't come out against this president, I think, and not anger his supporters. I know that because every time I say anything on the radio or TV or in the newspaper about it, I mean, they are still rabidly in his corner.
But I think you answer your question about why others aren't coming in. I mean, Justin Amash is an outlier within the delegation.
Right, and agree or disagree with him, you know, he's consistent. He says and does things according to his beliefs and not always according to party. We need more people like that. All right, another subject, the DPSCD, the new school district here in Detroit, has a new superintendent. I saw a lot of people really upset about how much money we're going to pay this person. It's not new in school district sort of debates. It is a lot for Detroit. It is a lot for a system that has lost a lot of kids. We have fewer kids, in fact, in the system he led in Florida, and yet we're going to give him a big raise to come do it. Are we making the wrong choice here?
I mean, I'm not going to comment on his salary one way or the other, but I mean, it certainly comes in the same week in which the Detroit Federation of Teachers, which represents the teachers in the district, they were going to have, you know, they said they had reached a deal on a contract, and then the executive board said, no, that's not a good enough deal.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, I was in a school yesterday, and I was talking to an administrator who said, you know, we haven't had a raise in all these years, and we really, we've got this teacher shortage, and that's actually probably the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges facing VDs. He's got to fill all these empty classrooms that need teachers.
Right.
The teachers need a contract that's going to attract people and keep people. And so it's just kind of, this person I was speaking to yesterday was pretty upset about, what do you think of that contract? What do you think of that salary he's getting? And I'm like, listen, you know, the reality is, if he can fix this school system,
well, no one will complain.
3 years, no one will. But I'll tell you what, if he's not successful, that salary is going to keep coming up, and people.
I mean, you do have to attract talent, and that has been one of our problems in Detroit schools for a long time. Is that we have settled for, I think, people who probably couldn't get jobs in the best systems around town. But there again, I mean, this is Detroit. You know, people look at something like that and think, good grief.
It's a different environment, though. I mean, I think it's a much more positive and inviting environment, the macro Detroit environment. I mean, I know there's huge challenges to the schools, but I think it's more inviting. And number two, it's what the market is. And whether the critics agree with it or like it or not, and think it's too much, you know, they're not going to get him on the cheap, particularly if you want somebody that's going to perform.
Yeah, the market is part of the problem here, though. I mean, you've got this sort of space race aspect to school superintendents. I mean, people being paid ridiculous amounts of money to lead very small districts. You know, there is not a great market excuse for all of that, I think.
I'm a DPS parent.
Right.
I have a son who is at Chrysler Elementary, and I just want to see performance. And I think that we have seen, I'm actually kind of excited about some of the innovations that Alicia Merriweather put on the table. I think that parents feel a sense of hope that we may have eluded us in earlier years. I mean, this merry-go-round and revolving door of superintendents that we've had, it's just been, I mean, no one's ideas had an opportunity to germinate, because everyone, you know, you throw an idea, and then you're out the door 5 minutes later. So, I mean, I'm hoping that the new superintendent will be successful. I'm hoping that, and I think the loyal opposition is important too. I think we need to have all voices at the table. And as a parent, you know, I think everyone is going to be watching very closely.
So what do we expect that VD can do in, let's say, the next 18 to 24 months, which will be critical because everyone will be paying attention. But of course, the problems in the system are so widespread and so deep that I think you got to keep expectations under control. What can he do in that first run that will wow people?
I mean, I think if he can change the narrative, that'll go a long way to helping, not fixing, but addressing some of the other problems, right?
Yeah.
So if he can rebuild trust, you know, think about how many Detroit families used to have their children in DPS and now
won't.
Right.
I'm one of them.
There you go.
Right.
So those are families that if he can somehow convince them to come back, not all of them, but a few, he could sort of work on the enrollment problem, which will bring more money in. If he can convince the business community to really get behind him, he could be looking at other sources of funds, right? Get partnerships. During his interview, he talked about maybe we could have a program for teachers where they could get mortgage benefits or something like that.
Right.
So you can sort of address the teacher shortage in creative ways. That's going to take money. It's going to take people somehow believing in him and in the team he puts together and in the direction he's taking the district.
And that will actually have change.
It's all about relationships. I mean, covering management CEOs all over the state, I can tell you, I look at this and I'm thinking it's all about relationships, and it starts with his relationship with Alicia Merriweather, I think, and he's already been on the record in saying that he wants to find a place for her. Well, he needs to make good on that. That will, I think, help him with credibility. I think the business community would absolutely stand ready to support him, no question about it. But again, it's about him building the relationships, going out and talking to the right people, and then following up. And the third thing is having a more workable, almost peer-to-peer relationship with the union.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I admire Mayor Duggan for is that he goes out of his way, at least rhetorically, to talk about how he sees the Detroit City Council as a partner.
Yes.
I think VD should do the same thing.
Rhetorically, right?
I mean, but I think there does seem to be more peace than there has been in that relationship.
Because he works that way.
Well, he does. He does.
He's very good at that.
He does,
Right.
and I think that VD would do well to really reach out to DFT. Teachers in the state have been vilified for so long.
Yeah.
They have not received a raise. I mean, we are talking. I have a very close friend who has 46 students in his class.
Wow.
He teaches he has a 7th grade class that has 46 students, and he's still getting the same salary that he got 3 or 4 years ago. So I mean, it's hard to look at those teachers and just say, well, you just have to suck it up. At some point, we have to, if we value education, we have to also value educators, and I think that he would do well to very early on establish a good relationship with those teachers.
One of the things I heard the mayor say in the last few weeks is that he wants to take another run at this Detroit Education Commission. He thinks now that the person who was principally against that is no longer in the state and is in Washington, we might get that done. Would that help VD with this sort of rebranding of the district if the charter schools had to play by the same rules or some rules?
I think, VD came out strong during his interview process with this, I'm going to put charter schools out of business.
Right.
And I know that certainly ruffled a lot of feathers in the charter school world.
Right.
And I get why he said that, and I think that was certainly important with this school board, with the people who support the traditional district schools in Detroit. But the reality is, a lot of the problems for Detroit children in general is lack of cooperation between the districts and the charter schools.
Right.
There are a lot of problems that would be much easier to address collaboratively. Transportation is the first one, which could also help address chronic absenteeism, which is a major problem both in charters and in district schools. Yeah. All kinds of other things could be done.
And the DEC would give us some of that cooperation, right?
The DEC would actually be a great framework, or some kind of collective or entity would be a great way of bringing them together. Yeah. The way it played out last year was extremely divisive, as we all know.
We just need to have accountability for all schools in our district and in our city, and we just don't have that now, and it's unfair. And
it's really hard as a parent.
It is hard as a parent.
It's really hard to explain to people who don't have to deal with it how hard it is if you're just trying to look for a school for your kids to evaluate, okay, which one of these is decent, which one's going to be around in 5 years. It's pretty chaotic.
Very chaotic.
Yeah. All right, guys, we could talk all hour, but we cannot do that, so we're out of time. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, finally tonight, we're following the story of 23-year-old Maria Juarez, who is set to be deported in just 8 days. We brought you her story last week as a look inside the immigration and deportation process and to challenge some assumptions about why people are being deported and why the system isn't as clear-cut as you may think it is. Maria's story is not typical. She was brought to the U.S. as a baby and now lives with her own family in Southwest Detroit. She's married to a U.S. citizen and her baby was born here, but she committed a crime as a juvenile, and although she's changed her life, that's where things get complicated. Plus, it's not as simple as blaming policies on one administration or another. So here at One Detroit, along with our partners at the Detroit Journalism Cooperative, we're trying to understand the process as it happens. Chastity Pratt Dawsey from Bridge Magazine has the second part of Maria's story.
I'm actually in bed. It's actually pretty late now, but unfortunately I'm unable to sleep. I have been unable to sleep for these past few days, and it just seems to get worse.
Maria Garcia Juarez, age 23, was brought into the U.S. by her mother at the age of 8 months. Next week, she's being deported, leaving behind her 1.5-year-old son and her husband, who's sick from leukemia. They're U.S. citizens. She's not. Why shouldn't she be deported?
I mean, she's been here since she was 8 months old. She made some bad choices. She was 17 years old. She's completely turned her life around. I mean, I think a lot of time with immigration, you look at these cases, they don't look at them as people.
5 years ago in Salinas, California, Juarez did drugs, stole cars, and led police on a high-speed chase. By then, her parents were gone, and she was living with family friends in a part of town where gangs were a part of life.
She was not part of a gang, but you also have to consider her circumstances. I mean, we would be more forgiving to anyone else in her situation.
Juarez came to Michigan, where she went straight, worked hard, and applied for asylum. But when that was denied, she was ordered to leave the country. The hope now is to get the Board of Immigration Appeals to reconsider her case. What is the best case scenario for her at this point?
The BIA approves her request to go back to the immigration judge here in Detroit, and she wins her cancellation of removal case.
Those typically take a long time.
They do, yes.
What's the worst case scenario?
She leaves, and it'll be a long time for her to come back.
Attorney Karine Salah says it might be 1 year, maybe 10 years before she can return. But Juarez has taken the first step toward leaving.
This is Delta Airlines, so she was right. We leave at 8:45. Might get there by 12:30. So it looks like that's my flight.
The government has given Juarez a choice. She can pick a place in Mexico to fly to next week, but she has to prove she's purchased an airline ticket this week.
I actually don't know much about Mexico. I've never been there, so everything, wherever I go, it's gonna be completely new to me.
But where would she go? She's just made contact with an uncle she's never met in Guadalajara, thanks to her grandmother.
She talked to him, and I called him, and now, he knows that I'll be going over there soon. So, definitely, I don't know them. I really don't know them, but I have to go.
But then there's the other option. Don't go. Stay anyway. But then ICE could come get her. She could be detained, sent to jail. Juarez and her attorney consulted some lawyers at the University of Detroit Mercy Immigration Law Clinic.
I think one of the concerns is that when people are detained, if they're removed from detention, I've heard stories, I've gotten phone calls from people saying, I was dropped off in the middle of the night in a very, very dangerous city like, Juarez, and that's a very scary situation, and that's definitely something that factors into the decision as to whether I just, whether I take the opportunity to buy this ticket and fly back, or whether I'm going to fight out my case as I'm entitled to do, but taking the chance of getting removed.
What it looks like is that I will be leaving. As much as I would want to fight it here, there's definitely not a big guarantee, and it would, the time I would be in jail would be indeterminate, and that is scary for me. I don't want to be in jail. There was a good chance of me, fighting my case out here, but unfortunately, there's not a high chance. So what it looks like, I'll be leaving to Mexico on May 26th. And unfortunately, they couldn't give me any better news or any better hope.
We'll continue to follow Maria's story. For more details on what Immigration and Customs Enforcement has to say about her case, plus a look at the number of deportations in Michigan since October, go to MiWeek.org. Check out last week's report. Plus, there's a link to a full story written by Bridge Magazine. That's going to do it for My Week. Thanks for joining us. Quick program note, you mark your calendars for 3 nights of My Week from Mackinac Island beginning May 31st. We're going to be covering the Mackinac Policy Conference, and we'll have shows on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night to keep you updated on the conversations about the future of our state. I'm Stephen Henderson. Christy will be back next Thursday. We'll see you then.
Did you know Roush Enterprises was selected by Google to assemble a test fleet of 100 prototype self-driving cars in 2015? It also produced the new Domino's delivery cars. And speaking of Domino's, Domino's sells well over 2 million pizzas per day around the world, and half of their sales are digital. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.